importantly, though, it ensures that the sacrifices of enslaved ancestors are not forgotten or overshadowed, or ancestors here on this soil, by broader narratives that benefit others more than the descendants of those who built this nation, who built America. So standing firm on foundational Black American identity, don't let them tell you that that's divisive. It's a declaration of our self-worth for the justice that belong to us and a fight for what is ours. Peace, foundational Black American family. Welcome to FBA Stoic Network podcast. Today, we're gonna be discussing why other ethnic groups and politicians want foundational Black Americans to be $5 Africans. Let's jump into it. So we gonna talk about the political reason behind the push to turn foundational Black Americans into $5 Africans. Now notice how other ethnic groups and American politicians, they often emphasize how foundational Black Americans need to identify as Africans. But this is for strategic reasons. For African nations, it's about expanding the global influence. If they promote this Pan-African identity onto us, they position themselves as the leaders and representatives of the worldwide Black diaspora, including foundational Black Americans. Now that gives them leverage in international diplomacy, like trade and aid discussion on a worldwide level. So on a worldwide level, they're able to lay claim to all of the foundational Black Americans' accomplishments. So foundational Black Americans delineating is a good thing. These American politicians that's framing foundational Black Americans as part of a larger African identity, that's a convenient way to dilute foundational Black American specific demands for justice, like reparations for slavery, systematic racism, and economic inequality. It's harder to fight when the conversation starts with what do foundational Black Americans deserve for the contributions they gave to the U.S. But then the conversations get shifted to what can we do for the global African diaspora when they turn us into $5 Africans. So we can't keep the conversation focused on what do Black Americans deserve for their contributions to the United States. Now, how does this help other groups? First of all, it strengthens African nations' influence. So when they claim in foundational Black Americans as part of their global African family, African nations, they increase their perceived population size and cultural influence. You dig? This boosts their bargaining power in international affairs, especially with countries that wish to engage with Africa as a continent. Number two, it diverts resources. When Black Americans are grouped with African immigrants and other members of the African diaspora, programs that's meant to address systematic racism and inequalities in the U.S., they stretch thin, dude, where we really don't get nothing. But this the catch-22. Immigrant groups who have different socioeconomic needs, different from ours, their history is different from ours, their lineage is different from ours, but they can benefit from policies that was designed to uplift the descendants of U.S. slavery. Foundational Black Americans, they got us in a trick bag. Now, a third way they able to benefit off this, they can avoid accountability. Politicians, they could claim they're addressing foundational Black American issues without tackling the specific historical injustice that's tied to foundational Black Americans. When they broaden the focus and they include African immigrants, that allows them to avoid enacting policies like reparations or economic programs aimed solely for those who are descendants from the enslaved people of the United States, foundational Black Americans. Now let's discuss how these policies hurt the FBA lineage. Number one, the erasure of our unique history. Foundational Black Americans, we have a distinct lineage that's tied to the United States through centuries of unpaid labor, come on now, systematic disenfranchisement, and cultural contributions. This is our land and we went through that struggle. When this identity is flooded into a Pan-African narrative, the specific sacrifices and achievements of foundational Black Americans, that shit is erased. This diminishes our ability, bro, to demand justice for what was stolen from our ancestors and what they stole from us. All the generational wealth that was stripped away from foundational Black Americans. Third, we lost political power when we started identifying as being African. Foundational Black Americans, we lost our political focus. Instead of us advocating for policies that address all unique challenges and all struggles, and nobody put the cape on for us, they lump us into this large group with diverse needs and priority. That dilutes our voice, weakening our ability to push for a meaningful change. That's why it's been so hard for us to push for reparations and so on. 4, it undermines the reparation movement. Reparations is for foundational Black Americans and is tied to the historical enslavement and the systematic discrimination that we faced in the U.S. The push to identify as African, that complicates all the claims, as it suggests that reparations should benefit all African people, all people of African descent, which would dilute the intent that impacted us specifically, foundational Black Americans. Reparations in the United States is owed to our specific lineage, not the African diaspora. It really hurts foundational Black Americans to identify as African. Encouraging FBAs to adopt this African identity that overlooks the fact that our ancestors built America with blood, sweat, and tears, man. Dig that. While cultural connections to Africa is kind of important, it has its worthiness and its celebrations and things. But our unique identity as foundational Black Americans, shaped by centuries of the struggle and triumph in the U.S., that shit is just as valid as being a goddamn African. So respect FBA as a lineage. FBAs created the foundation of America's wealth. Through the forced labor, we pioneered all the cultural movements like jazz and hip hop. We fought tirelessly for the civil rights that we don't even benefit off. To reduce this legacy to a general African identity, man, that strips away the specific shit we contributed to the struggles. It's akin to like erasing our place in history. like we never existed. It's a must. Foundational Black Americans defend our identity. Loving Africa and celebrating African culture, that's cool. But that don't mean foundational Black Americans should forfeit our unique identity. FBAs, we are a distinct group. We have a unique history. We have a unique culture. Foundational Black Americans are indigenous to the United States. We have a set of challenges that must be addressed directly. Recognizing the truth of this distinction doesn't diminish Pan-African solidarity. It strengthens it. It allows foundational Black Americans to honor their ancestors while still standing in solidarity with the global African diaspora. Most importantly, though, it ensures that the sacrifices of enslaved ancestors are not forgotten or overshadowed. Our ancestors here on this soil by broader narratives that benefit others more than the descendants of those who built this nation, who built America. So standing firm on foundational Black American identity, don't let them tell you that that's divisive. It's a declaration of our self-worth for the justice that belong to us and a fight for what is owed. The struggle never stopped. If you made it this far, you're a real one. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for tuning in to FBA Network Podcast. Please support the channel. The more you support, the more information we could put out there. Peace.